In a quiet suburb of Hartford, Connecticut, in the year 1970, a mother made a decision that would haunt her family for the rest of their lives. She bought her daughter a birthday gift, a Raggedy Ann doll, nearly 3 feet tall, with a stitched cloth face, orange yarn hair, and a painted smile that seemed almost too wide, too knowing. The daughter, a 28-year-old student nurse named Donna, kept the doll propped on her bed in the apartment she shared with her roommate, Angie. At first, it was nothing more than a keepsake. Within weeks, it would become something else entirely. The two young women began to notice the doll's position changing when they left their apartment. They would leave for class or for work and return to find Annabelle sitting in a different chair, or with her legs crossed in a way neither of them remembered leaving her. They dismissed it. Roommates play tricks on each other. But then came the notes, small pieces of parchment paper, a material neither of them owned, appearing on tables and countertops. The handwriting was childish, scrawled, and the words were always the same 3 phrases, repeated over and over. Help us. Help Lou. Lou is in danger. Lou was Donna's boyfriend, Louis. He often stayed the night at the apartment, and it was Louis who had the first truly physical encounter. He awoke one night with a crushing sensation on his chest, as though something invisible were kneeling on him, pinning him to the mattress, choking the air from his lungs. He would later describe it as feeling like his heart had stopped, that he was being strangled by nothing at all, and that he blacked out before it released him. The disturbances escalated. Blood, or something that looked exactly like blood, a thin red substance, began appearing on the doll's chest. 7 small drops, without explanation. The young women, terrified and desperate for answers, called in a medium. The medium held a séance in the apartment and told them a story that chilled them to the bone. She claimed that the spirit inhabiting the doll was that of a little girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had died on the property decades earlier at the age of 7, her body found in the field where the apartment complex now stood. The spirit, the medium said, felt unwanted by her own family and had latched onto Donna, seeking comfort, seeking a home. The girls, moved by pity rather than fear, agreed to let the spirit stay. They welcomed it. It was, in hindsight, the worst decision they could have made. The activity did not calm. It intensified. The doll began to move on its own in broad daylight, in full view of witnesses. It would be found in rooms with the door locked from the inside. And then, one evening, a college friend named Lou, a different Lou than Donna's boyfriend, though the coincidence of names disturbed everyone, visited the apartment and mocked the doll aloud, taunting it, telling it that if it was truly a spirit, it should prove itself instead of hiding behind a toy. That night, as he lay on the couch to sleep, he awoke, gasping, certain that something invisible had gripped his throat. He stumbled to the bathroom, turned on the light, and saw in the mirror deep red claw marks raked across his chest, 7 scratches burning into his skin, far too precise, far too deliberate to have been made by human hands. It was this attack that finally convinced Donna and Angie the situation had moved beyond anything a séance could explain. A priest was contacted, and through him, the case reached 2 investigators who would become the most famous paranormal researchers in American history, Ed and Lorraine Warren. When Ed and Lorraine arrived at the apartment, Lorraine, a self-described clairvoyant, said she sensed something deeply wrong the moment she stepped through the door, an inhuman, malevolent presence that had never been human at all. According to the Warrens, the story the medium had told was a lie, or more precisely, a deception fed to the women by something far darker than a lonely child's ghost. The Warrens concluded that what had attached itself to the doll was not the spirit of Annabelle Higgins. It was an inhuman entity, a demonic force, that had used the guise of an innocent child spirit to gain permission to enter the home. Because, as Ed Warren would explain countless times afterward in his lectures, a demonic entity cannot simply force its way into a person's life. It must first be invited in. The Warrens performed a blessing on the apartment, but the doll itself remained a problem. As Ed carried Annabelle out to his car to take her away for study, the vehicle's engine inexplicably failed, and strange scratching sounds emerged from the back seat where the doll sat. On the drive home, the car nearly veered off the road entirely, as though something were fighting to keep the doll from leaving. When they finally arrived at their house in Monroe, the Warrens placed Annabelle in a temporary box. Soon after, a family friend, a young man who'd come to visit, mocked the doll the same way the previous victim had, telling it that it held no power over him. That night, driving home on his motorcycle, he lost control on a stretch of straight, dry road for no discernible reason and was killed instantly, colliding with a tree. Ed Warren would maintain for the rest of his life that Annabelle was somehow responsible. Understanding now that this was no ordinary object, the Warrens had a specially reinforced glass case built, complete with a warning label reading, "Positively do not open," and placed the doll inside their private, occult museum in Monroe, Connecticut, alongside blessed items meant to contain any residual malevolence. For decades, Annabelle remained locked within that case, watched over, and according to the Warrens, still occasionally active. The doll reportedly found outside her sealed case on more than one occasion, despite the museum being locked and alarmed. Over the years, the legend of Annabelle grew far beyond the walls of that small Connecticut museum. Priests who came to inspect the doll reported car accidents on their drive home. Skeptics who mocked her publicly claimed to suffer sudden, unexplained misfortune. A security guard at the museum once dared the doll to hurt him, and was later found dead under circumstances his family insisted made no sense. Whether these stories are exaggeration, folklore accumulated over 50 years, or genuine testimony to something ancient and hostile living inside a cloth and yarn body, no one can say for certain. What is certain is this: the doll became the basis for one of the most successful horror franchises in modern cinema, and the real Annabelle still sits, or is said to still sit, inside her case in Monroe, Connecticut, behind reinforced glass, behind a warning sign that has never been removed. And to this day, those who worked closest with the Warrens repeat the same piece of advice to anyone curious enough to ask about her: never mock her, never dare her, and never under any circumstances open the case.